Right, so let's get stuck into the clash. Former Home Secretary Priti Patel has become the fifth MP to enter the Tory leadership race. She says that she will unite the party and turn it back into a winning machine. She joins James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat and also Mel Stride running to replace Rishi Sunak, and nominations will close tomorrow. So to get some reaction from those on the street, I'm joined by GBNews reporter Jack Carson in Lichfield. Jack Carson, it looks lovely out there. So what are people saying on the street in Michael Fabricant's constituency of Lichfield? Did he keep his seat?
No, well, this is the interesting point now. This is why we're here in Lichfield today, because, of course, Michael Fabricant lost his seat. You know, he held it since 1992. He lost it here in the election because of, you know, the Conservatives here dropped 30 points in that poll, and Reform got 20% of the vote share here. So this is very much one of those seats where some Conservative voters that had kept Michael Fabricant in this seat since 1992, for some reason, whatever that reason was, you know, differing ones as we've heard over the election period, chose to support someone else, whether it was moving to the Labour Party, whether it was moving to Reform. And so when you have now this leadership race within the Conservative Party, of course, Priti Patel being the latest person to throw her hat into the ring, this is where, you know, the people on the ground here, are they convinced by someone like Priti Patel to lead the Conservative Party back into government? Would she be someone who could maybe win their vote back? Of course, we know she's standing on that ticket of trying to unite the party, but she's maybe distancing herself from others in the way that she wants to go about rebuilding that party. One of those being to democratise it. She says she would give members the opportunity to have a democratically elected party chairman and also give them a greater voice and role within policy. And it's here on the street to the people that we've been speaking to where we've heard that really the policy, this enfranchisement that they felt towards the party, which maybe is one way forward for the Conservatives to rebuild. But take a listen to what people on the street have told us today.
He's just not a very good politician. And it's not what we need now.
What for you does the Tory Party need?
David Cameron back.
Because she's useless. She always has been useless. She put in this rounded business which cost the taxpayer a lot of money, and it never happened.
Yeah.
See, it's a rotten party, always has been. It's been a rotten party since Cameron got Prime Minister, when he had an alliance with the Lib Dems, and what did the Lib Dems do? Absolutely nothing.
I don't really care about them at the moment. They're not relevant, are they? They're just fighting amongst themselves, so, you know.
I'm not sure. I think the fact that there are so many candidates running is a worry itself. You know, there's no... That just says to me there's no unity. They really ought to, have these conversations behind closed doors, agree the leader between themselves, or perhaps two, and then have a vote. Otherwise, it's just going to get even more divisive, and they're going to be arguing about things over which now, because of what they've done in the past, they have no control.
So there you go, real mix of views there. I mean, this is the problem the Conservative Party maybe have in this leadership election, because you've got that support that went towards the Lib Dems, maybe in the more centre ground, but then you have, of course, had such a surge towards Reform. So how does the next party either balance out trying to bring both sides back together? Certainly in Priti Patel's pitch, you know, that she's confirmed over the past 24 hours, she's talked about turning to Conservative values, those strong policies to bring the public back. She says she wants to utilise the members on the ground is a way to try and beat the Lib Dems, beat Reform at the next election. But yeah, she's put her pitch forward, but still plenty of pictures from other candidates to come.
Thank you very much. There's Jack Carson there reporting live from Lichfield. Well, so those are the candidates so far. I mean, you heard what the viewers and the people in Lichfield said, but let's get started. Let's welcome again to my clashes political commentator Lee Harris, also political commentator Joanna Jarjue. I'll start with you, Lee Harris. The Tory Party, a lot of people think they're toast. I actually heard what one of the viewers said, that there's so many of them going for it that in the end it'll become divisive again and they're still fighting like cats in a sack.
Yeah, I quite like the comment from the chap who said, don't really care at the moment. I think there's an element of truth to that. I think they need to just be quiet for a little bit, sort themselves out. No, I appreciate they've got to do a leadership contest, but I think it is quite, even though I am a little bit bothered about who gets out, actually, because I think it has a really important impact on what happens to the future of the Conservatives and Reform. Especially Reform, I think, because if they get a kind of one nation centrist leader in, I think that would be brilliant for Reform. I think if they get a right-wing candidate in, maybe Priti Patel or I wouldn't say James Cleverly, but maybe a little bit of James Cleverly.
Suella Braverman?
The reason I haven't mentioned Suella Braverman...
Why?
...is because she is not... I've heard, I don't know if this is completely true, but she got zero support from zero MPs at the moment. So she's not even going to get put forward to the membership as it stands. So my guess is she'll probably move to Reform, and I think she'll be a very big asset to Reform.
Yeah.
So, and there's two polls I've seen. So there's one poll, which was a lot less people, about 750 members, who put Kenny Badenoch as the lead contender, and I saw a much bigger poll with Conservative Post that put Suella Braverman way out in front of the rest, and quite right, so she's popular with the membership.
I was there the day you said, you supported Tories, then in that same show you changed your mind.
I did.
Joanna Jarjue.
Well, to be honest, it doesn't really excite me, and I don't think it excites a lot of the country as well, from what you can see from the Vox Pops. Like we said, people just aren't bothered. We want to move on, and we want to move on with the change that we've all voted for by a landslide. I think somebody like Priti Patel, putting herself forward is kind of fanciful, really, and kind of wishful thinking, because I think that she forgets that people still remember that she had her fingers firmly on a lot of the things that actually happened over the last 14 years, and really pivotal stuff as well. I know that we talk about Rwanda. She started the whole thing with Rwanda. I know that Rishi Sunak obviously bears the brunt of it now, and we say, oh, you didn't get Rwanda over the line, but she started it. But also, even things like net migration, the fact that she, along with Boris Johnson, was the key architect to changing some of the rules that made it easier for us to have record numbers of migration. And if you're really going to run on that ticket, which the Tories have been beating that drum for so long on migration, you're not going to go back to the person who actually implemented some of these plans that made it then a slippery slope that's ended up with the Tories
If you are going backwards, then you might go backwards to Tony Blair, who made the rules such that this could happen in any case. So it depends how far you want to go back. But, yeah, I mean, in terms of the leadership, though, if you had to pick one of the so-called potential leaders that are there, so we've got... There's a list of people: Tom Tugendhat,
Mel Stride.
The problem with the Tories is that I actually think that some of the people who could have been good opposition leaders, like, for example, maybe Penny Mordaunt, I didn't think was that bad. I don't mind Tom Tugendhat. I think that it's actually going to be smarter for them to get a one-nation Tory, because we've seen that in terms of the Labour Party, they've done better when they've had more of a centrist leader moving on from Jeremy Corbyn. So I actually think that it would be better for them, rather than taking the bait from Reform. I don't actually think it's going to have that much of an effect. I think that they need to go down the middle ground, but then be firm on things that people, who are notoriously, or I guess traditionally conservative, feel are conservative values, rather than pandering to the far right.
Far right. Although...
Well, they are the far right. What else would you call them?
Who's the far right, sorry?
Reform.
No, they're not. That's ridiculous.
What else are they?
Far right? Why are they the far right?
Are they centrist?
What is far right?
Well, they're just right-wing.
Well, hang on, what is far right to you? What
The extreme...
far right?
Nigel Farage, I would say, is far right. I mean, he's not exactly centrist on a lot of stuff.
I would say far right would be sort of like Hitler. That's far right.
That's real far right.
That's proper far right, isn't it?
I think a lot of people, based on the stuff that Reform have come out with, but obviously people disagree all the time when I say this, on this programme, but there's a big chunk of this country who believe that some of the things that the Reform leaders and Reform members have said have been racist. That's not to say that every single supporter of Reform is racist, but in terms of the policies that they've put forward.
Yeah, you could say that about the Labour Party, though. You could say that about...
Well, there's a reason why they've got that reputation. And I'm not saying that every Reform... Before people come at me on Twitter...
coming at you. They'll have to deal with me first, get past me. I'm a lot scarier. But listen, what I was trying to say was... I've forgotten it now because somebody's...
Well, this is the more interesting part of the conversation, right? So the more interesting part of the conversation is who's going to be the best person to... or let me just say, the direction of travel for the Conservatives and how that's going to affect Reform and where that is best placed. I completely disagree with you when you say you kind of take the liberal centrist view, like the Rory Stewart view, that it's better for the Conservatives to move to the centre. I think it's demonstrably false that is the case. So a quarter of 2019 Conservative voters went to Reform. The reason the Conservative Party lost the last election is because Conservative voters did not come out to vote for them. They were angry.
But can I just say,
I think that you are giving the Conservative Party too much credit. I think people voted Reform simply for the policies. British people
I agree with that.
Aren't stupid. They would have listened to what Reform had to say. They would listen to the Conservatives and they would have listened to the Labour Party. And to be fair, they were not all saying the same
No,
thing.
I completely agree with you on
If anything,
that.
the Conservative parties were beginning to sound like Labour, and seeing as you knew the Conservatives were never going to win, you might as well vote
But
Labour.
when you
They
look at
sounded like
recent history, and when you look at, I know that obviously David Cameron is not my favourite person either, but when you look at David Cameron, even Boris Johnson to an extent, I think Boris Johnson obviously kind of moves with the tide depending on what he thinks public opinion is. You know, he was actually naturally a Remainer, and then all of a sudden he was a staunch Brexiteer because he knew that that's what would get him in a powerful position behind closed doors. But what I'm saying is that in recent history, when you look at the Conservative leaders that have actually been really successful, like David Cameron and Boris Johnson, they haven't been in Suella Braverman's camp or nearer to Reform.
We'll come back to that, but I'm not sure. I think possibly the reason why the Tories lost is because they were not being Conservative, which is where they lost the majority of their votes. That is shown out by a lot of the figures, but they were also they literally were in hoc with the Labour Party. It felt like it because their policies were very similar. That is my view. What do you think? GBNews.com/your say. But will Sir Keir Starmer drag us back into the EU? Because reports in the Telegraph claim that the Spanish Prime Minister made a case for an agreement allowing Spanish young people to live in the UK in private talks with Keir Starmer at the European Summit 2 weeks ago, and the Labour leader apparently rejected the proposal. But the thing is, you can't do one thing for one country, you have to do it for all of them. Joanna Jarjue, what do you think?
I think it's a brilliant idea, and I know that people are going to come at Keir Starmer and say, oh, he's going to drag us back into the EU, and this is all part of kind of like the first stage of a long-term plan, but I don't actually think that that's the case. Clearly, this is something that the Spanish PM has brought to him, and I think that because Keir Starmer has other things that are actually in the British interest that he wants to also put to Spain and other European countries, he's almost got to start to do that negotiation, and you've got to kind of, I think people forget that, even part of the Brexit negotiations, sometimes in negotiations you've got to concede on certain things, but we're just not comfortable with that as a country. We think we're going to go in, bulldoze and cherry pick, and that's never the case. And there's really important things, particularly for farmers, for example, you know, in terms of checks on animal products and having a mutually kind of, I guess, like a level playing field in terms of recognising qualifications that are going to be really important to us. So he'll have this in the back of his mind, and realistically, when you look at that demographic of who voted for Brexit, this is going to be really welcome news. I'm just gutted that I've just turned 30, so by the time this comes in, I won't be able to I was also the first year to pay £9,000 for uni, so it just seems as if my particular year group just, miss out all the time.
I was the first one, the last of the O-levels, and that's not good because then they made sure you got a lower grade so the other ones look good. But I still did really well, actually, as it goes. Lee Harris, what do you think?
Look, the 2 points I want to make about this. You can't trust anything that Keir Starmer says for a start. Flip-flop Starmer. You just don't know what the man's going to do. You have no idea what he's going to do. His 5 pledges that he won the leadership on, the tax raid that's going to happen soon, saying that, you know, we weren't going to raise these taxes on working people yet. We know he's going to raise taxes. The point about Keir Starmer and will he take us back into the EU is this is the man that stood up and said, I will respect the result, whatever happens. I saw the clip, he said it in Parliament, I will respect the result. As soon as he lost that vote, he went straight out and campaigned for another one. Right, so the guy is, I don't trust him. I think he's a bit of a liar.
But you could say that about Rishi Sunak.
I would say that about Rishi Sunak.
And he didn't manage those either.
Yeah, no, Rishi Sunak's, in my view, slightly worse because he... I feel like he lied directly to the membership, of which I was a part of at the time.
What did he lie about, sorry?
Rishi Sunak in general.
What you said just now that you were annoyed about that?
Well, I think he represents the lies that we were told about the Conservative Party reducing immigration. And I know he was only in charge for 18 months, but he was in charge and he did little or nothing to... And with the whole flights to Rwanda, why didn't he send the flights?
Well, I think he was... Well, I think...
He could have done. France did.
Maybe if he'd listened to Robert Jenrick or Suella Braverman and made it a bit more watertight.
And spent way more money.
Well, listen, we've got to move